talk a little bit about career management. And I'll say that after one of mine, Johnny Bunko, is my absolute favorite book you've written. I loved it. And I think it contains a lot of great lessons for a satisfying, productive career. Would you remind me of what those are?
Well, that book, thank you for mentioning that book. That book's a graphic novel about a guy named Johnny Bunko who works at a big company, the Boggs Corporation, and he is an accountant. He's in the accounting department. He has a dark night of the soul because he doesn't like his job, and through some magic chopsticks and a sprightly figure named Diana, he begins to discover the 6 essential lessons of any career, and they are: number 1, there is no plan. Meaning that, like, I sort of bristle at the idea of career management because I don't think it's something you can manage. I think it's much looser and more fluid than that. And so the people who go in basically alert to opportunity, but not trying to march to a certain plan, do better. Second is to think strengths, not weaknesses. A lot of great research recently from Gallup and others about how what we should do is really focus on our strengths rather than spend all our time repairing our weaknesses. We need to make sure our weaknesses don't hold us back too much. But it's really, what are your strengths? What are you strong at? And that should be the focus of your work. One of the big important ones for millennials is it's not about you, which goes to your idea of a guest. That is sort of being more focused on what can you do for somebody else? What can you do to make someone else's life better? I love all of these, but my favorite is persistence trumps talent. There's a lot of evidence building, and I think a lot of us have seen it in our own lives that talent isn't enough. That people who stick with it, people who are dogged, people who have grit, who persevere, end up really achieving great things and contributing to the world. Fifth is to make excellent mistakes. I think a lot of people are too risk averse, and they don't make the right kind of mistakes that come from risk aversion. And the final one, number 6, is leave an imprint. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself, why are you here in the first place? Why? What's your life about? And what kind of imprint, what kind of legacy do you want to leave in the world? So these are the 6 lessons that Johnny learns along the way, and we'll see where it leads him.
Well, when John becomes John, CEO, I don't think those lessons should be lost on him, right?
I don't think so. We're not sure where Johnny is. It's unclear where Johnny is. Unclear where Johnny is going.
So let's talk about your career just a bit. So I think I read on your website.
Which was definitely not managed by any.
Was not managed,
yeah.
Right? And that's what I'm sort of leading to. So you had your quote last real job at the White House, where you served from 95 to 97 as chief speechwriter to Vice President Al Gore. Then you became an author. So tell me how that happened and what resistance you faced and what led you there.
Well, I went to work in politics. I worked in politics for a while because I was really interested in it. I was deeply, deeply interested in it. And I thought it was a way to have some kind of small positive effect in the world. And when I got into the belly of the beast, I found parts of it quite exhilarating, but I was really kind of disillusioned by a big chunk of it. Not by the people who I worked for, by the system itself. And I also just, I really began bristling at a couple of things. One of them was having someone else control my schedule. And the other one as a writer was writing someone else's words rather than my own. And so I finally just couldn't take it anymore. And so I left in 1997. Now again, this is not a kind of radical, crazy, I didn't leave on bad terms. I didn't say take this job and shove it. I just said, hey, I can't do this anymore, and in my personal life, my wife kept her job, kept her health insurance, so this wasn't kind of this wild, crazy thing. And I decided to go and see, could I make a living writing myself, and writing about the things that I cared about, that I wanted to read, writing basically the kind of articles and books that I wanted to read, figuring that I'm not that special. If I want to read something, chances are a lot of other people want to read it too. And so that's how I came to it. So if you had told me, 30 years ago, this is what I'd be doing for a living, I don't think I'd be like completely shocked, but I'd probably be a little surprised.
And it's hard work, right?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Did you think it would be so hard?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I didn't have any illusions about it, actually, but it's really hard. It's hard for everybody. It's not just hard for me. Anybody who's self-employed is working a lot. They're really, they're fighting to make it all work, make it all hang together. But I think that's true for people in regular jobs too. I think that right now, things are really hard. You got to work really hard. That there are, punishments for mediocrity and averageness. And it used to be being mediocre or average was okay, and now the world is too competitive, the world is too relentless. So it's I don't, it's tough out there.
So there are a lot of executives now who are in transition. They're looking for new work. They're thinking about leaving their job, whether they say take this job and shove it or not. It's not a happy place for them. So they're looking around. A lot of us tend to do that online, in professional networks, large sprawling places, as well as smaller niche networks where executives hang out.
Yeah.
Do you have any strong feeling or any advice for executives who are looking there, trying to make a change happen? What should they be doing?
It's a bunch of things.
Where are you?
Yeah. I mean, there are a number of different things. I mean, one of the classic pieces of advice, even though it sounds a little bit cornball, it comes from a guy named Gary McKay, who is like sort of a old-fashioned sales guy. Harvey McKay, yeah. Old-fashioned kind of corn-pone sales guy. Lovely man. And he has a great way to put it. He says, you need to dig your well before you're thirsty. And so I think what happens to a lot of executives is they haven't built a relationship, they haven't built the networks, they haven't been generous enough early on, and then suddenly they actually need that network, need folks to be the avenues to the next job. So my first thing would be, I mean, again, to just quote Harvey, dig your well before you're thirsty. I think that's the most important. That's the most important one. Beyond that, I mean, I think that the online gives people a lot of new avenues to find connections in really, really, really powerful ways. I don't know if I would rely on it solely, but I would make it a big, big part of my toolbox. Absolutely. There is, I mean, it's old, it's been around for a while, but one of the interesting things that's come out and been verified over again is that what often leads to new opportunities are what are called weak ties. Not, strong tie is someone who you're, close friends with, a relative or something like that. But a weak tie is someone who's basically an acquaintance. And there's a lot of evidence showing that the pathway to new jobs is through weak ties. And online does a very, very good job of helping you maintain weak ties. Adam Grant, who I mentioned before, doing the extrovert study, has done some really, really interesting research that he's written about the importance of dormant contacts. That is, people whom you haven't talked to for a while. It can be really interesting ways to regenerate, realign your network. So, so among the principles, again, I really want to go back. Number one, dig your well before you're thirsty. Number two, I would rely on online and offline. I wouldn't limit one or the other. And I wouldn't say, online isn't serious, it all has to be personal. I don't buy that at all. The third thing would be just practice generosity. I think that, I think that's just a good habit over the long haul of one's life. You have to be as generous as possible. Not in recognizing that that acts of generosity in some ways just enrich the whole world. They probably will come back to you in some fashion over time. But if you're keeping a ledger, that sort of defeats the whole purpose. So I think that sort of practicing generosity is actually a pretty good technique.